Welcome to Neo Royal House of Pricey Cardboard and to our 4th episode of EDH gameplay. We have 2 new challengers for you today. Francis is bringing his traditional Daxos the Return deck. He aims to cast good enchantments, gaining additional value with Daxos, and close the game with his tokens. Next, we have Kelly playing Chainer Nightmare Adept. This is the spiritual successor to Xensha. This deck is a mix between a Nikusar wheel deck and a Reanimator. She wants to wheel her hand, dealing us damage in the processes, and abuse her graveyard with creatures. After that, I play my Sidisi, the Blood Tyrant deck. This is a self-milled combo-y deck, aiming to gain value from reanimation and getting a lot of cards in my graveyard. I say combo-y for interactions like Path of Discovery and finishers like Echo of Aeons with Conrad. Finally, Guillaume brings his Gargos Vicious Watcher out to play. This tribal Hydra deck aims to generate a lot of mana to cast huge trample creatures and overwhelm the table by combat damage. Francis' opening hand consists of a Helm of the Gods, Bastion Protector, Whip of Erebos, a Terramorphic Expanse, Forsaken Sanctuary, and 2 basic Swamp. Kelly's opening hand consists of Graven Predator Captain, Magus of the Wheel, Raider's Way, also a Whip of Erebos, a Soul Ring, Myriad Landscape, and a basic Mountain. My opening hand consists of Butcher of Malakir, Dread Return, Bow of Nilea, Sunken Hollow, Scavenger Ground, and a basic forest. Finally, Guillaume, after multiple mulligans, starts the game with the Great Henge, Vastwood Hydra, and 3 basic forests. Kelly gets randomly chosen by the Spinny Thing of Fate in Life Linker and starts this off. She land drops a Myriad Landscape and pass. Guillaume land drops a basic forest and pass. I land drop a tapped Sunken Hollow and pass. Finally, Francis land drops a tap Forsaken Sanctuary and we head into the second turn. Kelly land drops a basic Mountain, taps it to cast a Soul Ring and then use the 2 mana to crack her Myriad Landscape, fetching 2 basic Swamp to the battlefield. Guillaume repeats his first turn by playing a basic Forest and pass. I land drop a basic Snow Covered Forest and pass. Francis land drops a Terramorphic Expanse, cracking it for a basic Plan. He then casts a Helm of the Gods and ends his turn. Kelly untaps and land drops a basic Mountain. I'm having flashbacks of a certain Xensha game on this channel. She casts a Graven Predator Captain, followed by a Kederek Parasite, ending her turn. From now on, every time one of our opponents draws a card, the Parasite will deal 1 damage to that player. Guillaume goes to his turn, takes a damage, and then drops a Reliquary Tower. Having a really slow start, he passes. I then drop a Woodland Cemetery and cast a Bow of Nilea, setuping for future turns. I pass to Francis, who untaps and casts his Commander.
Shh! The terrors of the underworld travel alongside those who return to the mortal realm.
He then passes. Kelly casts a Crucible of Worlds and land drops her Myriad Landscape once again from the graveyard. She goes to combat and sends Graven to Guillaume, who doesn't block. She passes. Guillaume land drops a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, and is quite bummed out to not have enough green mana to cast his Llanowar tribes. He ships me the turn. I land drop an Alchemist Refuge. I cast my Commander.
So we have a word for enemies too mutilated for military services.
No!
Furnitures.
Entering the battlefield, I mill 3 cards, and having hit a creature, I create a 2/2 zombie. I then pass. Francis land drops a basic Swamp and casts Bastion Protector. He then equips the Helm to his Commander and goes to combat. A 4/4 indestructible Daxos head to Kelly and she doesn't block. Francis then gives her the turn. Kelly land drops a basic Mountain and casts a Whip of Erebos. There was a misplay during this game as we did not catch that the Parasite was dealing damage instead of losing life, which should trigger the lifelink. We catch it later in the game and started playing from there. It does not, however, affect the game too much since Kelly is gonna gain a lot of life anyway in our following turns. Coming back to the game, Kelly cracks her Myriad Landscape once more and fetches 2 basic Swamp to her battlefield. She goes to combat and sends Graven to Francis as thanks for the last combat step. Guillaume begins his turn and casts his first spell of the game, a Mana Gorger Hydra. then shifts me the turn. For my turn, I go straight to combat. I send Sidisi to Kelly, creating a zombie with her attack trigger. I then cast a Dread Return and brings back Muldrota from my graveyard. I then drop a Morphic Pool from my graveyard and pass the turn. Francis goes to his turn, plays a basic plane, and then, want to get into the life gain action, cast a Whip of Erebos, gaining an experience counter. He goes to combat and send the Bastion Protector to Kelly, trying to prevent her from reaching an absurd amount of life. He ends his turn. Kelly replays her Myriad Landscape from the graveyard and follow it up with an Ashnod's Altar. She then brings her commander.
Your life is finished, your name lost, and your work forgotten. It is as though you never existed.
She goes to combat and sends Graven to Guillaume. She ends her turn. Guillaume finally gets a third green source as a basic forest and casts his Llanowar Tribes. He goes to combat and sends his now 6/6 Hydra to Kelly. Before going to my turn, I cast an Entomb at his end step. I search and put to graveyard a Path of Discovery. We then go to my turn. With Muldrota, I cast the Path of Discovery from our graveyard. I then go to combat, sending Sidisi and Muldrota to Kelly. I will quickly explain the interaction between Sidisi and Path of Discovery. Upon milling my 3 cards, if I hit a creature, I create a zombie token. Entering the battlefield, this token will then explore, revealing the top card of my deck. If it's a land card, it goes to my hand and nothing else happens. But if a creature is revealed, I can put it into my graveyard, which will then trigger Sidisi to create a second zombie and starting this interaction all over again. So basically, as long as I reveal creatures from the top of my deck, I can create that many zombies from the Explorer triggers. For this combat step, I create 3 zombies total and draw a breeding pool. I then land drop a tapped Opulent Palace and cast a Skull Clamp. I then flash back my Dread Return by sacrificing 3 zombies and returns the Gitrog monster to my battlefield. It explores and put an Ash Baron to my hand. I land drop a second time with Gitrog monster, a Llanowar Waste, and equip the Skull Clamp to Muldrota. Satisfied with my turn, I shift the turn to Francis. He untaps and land drops a Rogue's Passage. He casts a Ghostly Prison, gaining a second experience. He then gives the turn to Kelly. Kelly starts by discarding a Magus of the Wheel to chain her ability. She then casts the Magus from her graveyard, granting it haste. After that, she casts a Raider's Wake and goes to combat, as I explained to Francis that we will likely feel a slight pain in the coming minutes. She sends Graven to me and I block with a zombie and the Gitrog monster. Responding to my blocks, she sacrificed Graven to the altar and used the 2 mana to crack her Myriad for 2 basic swamps. She then goes to her end step and Raider's Wake triggers, making Guillaume discard a card and lose 2 life. Guillaume casts the Great Henge, giving him some much needed life gain ability. It's at this moment I read and realize that Kelly should be gaining life from the Parasite. From now on, the lifelink will be correctly displayed. Guillaume then casts his commander. Great Henge triggers and draws a card while putting a +1/+1 counter on the Hydra. He then enchants his commander with a Rancor, granting him a much needed trample, and follow it up with a Vastwood Hydra, which also triggers the Great Henge. At Guillaume's end step, Kelly activates the Magus of the Wheel to wheel our hands. Luckily for us, Francis is ready and destroys Raider's Wake with a generous gift, preventing a lot of damage. Everybody draws a fresh new 7 cards, taking 7 damage from the Parasite. I then draw 4 additional cards due to my hand containing 4 lands and Gitrog being on the battlefield. At the beginning of my upkeep, I decline to sacrifice a land and send the Gitrog monster to my graveyard. I then drop a basic snow-covered swamp and follow it up with my own Whip of Erebos. I think that at this moment, Guillaume is questioning his color choices. I go to combat and attack Kelly with Sidisi and Muldrota once more. I create a zombie and then explore into Growing Rites of Itlamok, which I put to my graveyard. I cast Growing Rites of Itlamok from my graveyard and reveal a Bane of Progress with the Enter the Battlefield trigger, putting it into my hand. At my end step, the enchantment flips into Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. Francis draws and land drop a basic plane. He casts Sigil of the Empty Throne, gaining an experience counter. He followed it up with the Seal of Cleansing, gaining an Angel and another experience. He then headed to combat, sending Bastion Protector to Kelly. Kelly untaps for the turn 8. She then drops a Temple of the False God and casts a Flayer of the 8-bound. She discards Combustible Gear Hulk to chain her and then casts the set Gear Hulk. Entering the battlefield, Guillaume gets targeted and he decides to let Kelly draw 3 cards. The Flayer triggers and I take 6 damage from the Gear Hulk entering the battlefield from the graveyard. Kelly ends her turn by casting an Entomb, searching and putting Archfiend of Ifnir to our graveyard. Guillaume then drops a basic forest and taps the Great Henge, gaining 2 life. He casts a Vigor, drawing a card with Great Henge, and follow it up with a 14/14 Hooded Hydra, drawing another card. He goes to combat and sends his Commander and the Mana Gorger to Kelly, and the Vastwood Hydra to me. No blocks are declared, and Kelly loses a big part of her life. At Guillaume's end step, I activate my Bow of Nilea to grant a +1/+1 to my Commander. I then untaps. I draw and then drops a Drowned Catacomb. I cast a Butcher of Malakir from my graveyard. The Butcher triggers Path of Discovery, and, to stop a possible chain of zombies, Francis sacrifices Seal to destroy my enchantment. I reveal and mill a Zoloport Cutthroat, creating a 2/2 zombie. I then recast the Path of Discovery with Mildrota and go to combat. I send my Commander to Kelly. I create a zombie with the attack trigger and mill a life from the loan. Kelly blocks with her Flayer and both creature dies. The Flayer comes back with an Undying trigger and deals 5 damage to Mildrota. I draw 2 cards from my creature dying and my Butcher triggered twice. Guillaume sacrificed Hooded Hydra and Vastwood Hydra, creating 14 snakes and putting the +1/+1 counters on his Commander. Kelly sacrificed the Gear Hulk and the Parasite. And Francis sacrificed his Angel and the Bastion Protector, barely saving his Commander. I then shift the turn to him. He cast an Najanis Chosen, and then the new Erebos Bleak-Hearted. He gains an Experience counter, an Angel, and a Cat. Keeping blocker, he pass. Kelly then drops a Command Tower and casts a Viscera. She then casts a Nim Death Mantle. She discards my Chaos the Unhallowed to chain her ability, but I counter the ability with Tail's Hand. She then ends her turn. Guillaume then drops a basic forest and taps the Great Henge, gaining 2 life. He casts a Hydra Broodmaster, drawing a card with the Great Henge. He then decides to activate the Hydra Monstrous ability where X equals 9, gaining 9 +1/+1 counters and creating 9 Hydra tokens. He goes to combat. I tell Kelly that she can probably kill Guillaume with the Flayer and the Nim Death Mantle at instant speed. She then realizes that she assembled a loop between Ashnod's Altar, Nim Death Mantle, and an undying creature that deals damage to player. A playgroup doesn't play with infinites, but the Death Mantle was added as a value piece without realizing the combo. Luckily for us, Guillaume has a Beast Within that he casts on the equipment while the Undying trigger is on the stack and the loops get stopped. Kelly gets an activation and removes the counter on her Flayer, dealing 4 damage to Guillaume when coming back. He sends 14 snakes and the Mana Gorger Hydra to me, killing me even with blocks, and his Commander to Kelly. To not die to Commander damage, Kelly blocks with almost everything she has and goes to only 20 Commander damage. Guillaume then pass. Francis looks at his board and life totals. He activates Rogue's Passage to make his Commander unblockable. He then sends Daxos and an Angel to Guillaume, killing him. He passes to Kelly. Kelly brings back her Commander and discards a Rix Muddy to him. She casts the Magus of the Wheel from her graveyard. The Flayer triggers and deals 3 damage to Francis. She then drops a basic mountain and, searching for answers, activates the Magus. At her end step, Francis activates Daxos and creates a Spirit and a 2/2 cat. Francis starts his turn and casts a Grasp of Fate, targeting the Whip of Erebos. He gets an Experience counter, an Angel, and a cat. He then casts an Archetype of Courage, getting the same triggers. He goes to combat and sends Daxos, an Angel, a Spirit, and 2 cats to Kelly. Reacting to the attackers, Kelly casts Chaos Warp on Daxos. He put it back into the command zone and reveals a Starfield Mystic from the top of his deck. She blocks a cat with the Flayer and takes the rest. Kelly then drops a Scavenger Ground and gets the top deck she was looking for, a Besiege the Queen. She goes through her library and finds a Living Death. She sacrifices her creature to the Viscera, scrying down 3 cards and resolve Living Death. The Flayer of the Unbound sees everything coming back and deals 42 damage to Francis. And, since all of these creatures did not come from her hand, Chainer gives them haste, giving Kelly another win on this channel. Looking back at this game, Kelly had a really good opening hands. Magus of the Wheel is the most looked after card in the deck, and the Ramp and Draw were gravy on top. We had a few misplays during the game about her lifelink, but ultimately Guillaume would have been able to get her if he really wanted to. For myself, I had a good game, but didn't manage to get either a controlling position with Butcher of Manakir or a good damage with triggers. I did not suffer from too much grave hate, which is always good for a deck that wants to use it all game long. Guillaume had problems finding a good starting hand, and then suffered of a slow start because of it. He was also the only one not having lifelink on his creatures at one point, which can be rough for a combat deck. He still got to bash some people with Hydras in the later game, which is great. Finally, Francis had a real chance of closing this game, but with a little luck and Tutor's effect, the balance switches quickly in Kelly's favor. I thank you for watching this video. I'm excited to see this channel growing with each released video and will keep practicing my editing skills. If you have more time available, consider watching our last video, an unconventional take on Daxos the Return. Subscribe, take care, and see you soon!